Once we start to consider the vast amount of information the brain is subject to, it's estimated at about 11 million bits per second of volume of information that the brain gets exposed to. That's when we understand the importance of how the brain deletes, distorts, and filters all of that information to make it make sense for a couple of reasons. Before we're going to those reasons, I want to give you the probably best example. You have a fight with your partner or with someone, a family member and a friend, and then moments later, you can't even remember what you were fighting about. What you do remember is that the partner, friend, or family member is a fucking asshole. That is the brain taking away all of the information about what someone said and how they said it or what they meant and all the other details. And it just remembers, be aware of that person. And so when you speak to them again, the brain only remembers, be aware of that person. It doesn't recall exactly what was said, which is why we have arguments like, oh, you said this. No, I said this. I said it this way. The brain only remembers what it can remember because of its limited capacity. Another great example, if you never fight with someone, is that when you're driving, you get bombarded with information. There's signs, there's information, there's speed, there's registration plates. But when you're driving and you're heading to a destination, you're not worried about the parking signs. You're not worried about everyone's registration plate. You're worried about what exit to take, how far away it is, and how to get there. So the brain filters all the other stuff. Once you get closer to your destination, that's when you start worrying about parking signs, people jumping out, because it's relevant at the time. And of course, you're less worried about how far away the next city is or what exit to take because you're focusing on parking. So in order for us mortal humans to be able to deal with life, the brain has got a function where it deletes, distorts, and filters all of those 11 million bits per second that comes in. So we're quickly gonna go into the reasons. The first one being cognitive efficiency. If your brain at its capacity had to deal with all of the information constantly, like a computer, it would break down. If you would have too many windows up in your brain at any one time dealing with all this different information, it just simply wouldn't cope and it would overload. So that's not efficient for the brain. A computer can do it. We can't yet. The second one being memory consolidation. So understand then how important this is for truth and how hard it is for the brain to know what's truly true, because it's going to take the information it wants to remember. We'll get into this more shortly. But it wants to take all the information that it believes to be making sense right now. So when I'm having memories of the past, what memories have the brain chosen? And it's just important to be aware that just because your brain thinks something and feels something and remembers something, that's not the complete truth. It's what your brain, my brain, deleted, distorted, and filtered to believe. We'll get into why that's happening, but let's move on. The third one being emotional regulation. The main focus of the brain is to keep you safe. So it's going to delete, distort, and filter everything to make you feel safe, even if it means being a little bit in pain. If something is more familiar to the brain, if the brain perceives that I have had a certain experience with partners, the brain wants me to be in a familiar state. So it wants to reproduce that same environment with most of my partners, even though they're different partners in different places, different ages, etc., etc. Because if my brain is wired more towards negativity, I'm going to be safer. I'm more likely to survive if I observe everything with a little bit of more caution instead of just excitement and naivety. A child is curious. They will touch the hot plate. They'll burn themselves and remember that's unsafe. That's how I'm now wired to be cautious, which is a good thing. But it can also make me overcautious, etc. The fourth one is survival mechanism. I kind of tapped into that previously. But essentially, if I'm more familiar, if the brain is more familiar, if anything changes in my life, I'm more likely to die. So whenever someone introduces a new idea or change, that's going to be scary. What you can learn is adopt and lean into something that's scary, because that's when we open doors. So the first kiss, the first job interview, the first time you moved out of home, the first time you moved in with a partner, the first date, anything that happens the first time is going to be scary. But remember, every time you've done that, every time you had the conversation, every time you made the call, every time you kissed the girl, it led to something greater. It led to a connection, it led to intimacy, it led to a new job, it led to more money, it led to new experiences, it led to excitement, curiosity. So if you lean in towards that pain of doing hard things, it would lead to better things. The fifth one is social interaction. Again, it's about keeping you safe, but the brain is filtering, distorting, and deleting information in order for us to even have the ability to be social. So very soon I'm gonna get into how to rewire your brain, but first I wanna explain this. The filters we use has got to do with attention. So like relevance and importance. What's important at the moment? Well, the brain is going to filter, delete, and distort relevant information accordingly to where I'm at. If I'm hungry, I'm not going to find DIY projects in the super. It's going to find fruit, meat, food. If I'm out running, it's going to automatically try and look for water sources, whether that's a shop or a watering hole back in the day. Number two, the filters is expectations and learning. Now, here's one of my favorite examples, and understand the conditioning of what you believe. I want to show you in this video that the way you're wired, you've set up based to serve you, and someone else can be wired completely differently based to serve them. So where does it all come from? When we were kids and we weren't hungry, the adults would be like, one little airplane for Papa, one little airplane for Mama, and then the kids kept eating. So we're being very playful with food as the adults to feed the child. The kid is conditioned to think that food is playful. What happens a bunch of years later? The kid is sitting there playing with the food, and the adult goes, "Stop playing with your food." Isn't that funny? And third filter, context. Depending on where you're at, what you're doing, the brain is going to delete, distort, and filter information accordingly. 4, emotions. If I feel sad, if I'm vulnerable, maybe certain scenarios aren't beneficial. So it's good to set up your boundaries to say, hey, I'm not ready to have this conversation yet. Give me a moment. Or if you're angry, hey, I don't want to have this conversation with you. I love you. Let's cool down first. Let me have a moment, right? So set your boundary if you feel like you're emotionally not ready for a certain conversation. And also understand that if I feel vulnerable, maybe I'll be easier to feel attacked. Even if someone just asks me a question, I, in my vulnerable state, might feel vulnerable. So the brain will delete, distort, and filter according to my emotional state. 5th filter is cognitive load. If I am overwhelmed, if I've got a heaps of shit going on in my brain, the brain will simply delete, distort, and filter information accordingly to make it easier to deal with. The brain has a certain capacity, which we are able to train, distort, adapt, but there's still a capacity to the brain. And if I was able to take in all of the information, remember all of the information, remember exactly what you said and how you said it, there's simply no capacity for the brain to do that. So please understand that your beliefs, your attitude towards things, your memory, your feelings aren't completely real. Let me say that again. Your feelings, beliefs, and your truth isn't the complete truth. It isn't the final, the only solution. So with that in mind, if we sit back, take a little step back, and we understand that my feelings, my beliefs, everything about life that I believe is true to me because my brain has deleted, distorted, and filtered 11 million bits per second. My memories, feelings, my emotions aren't necessarily 100% accurate. They're just a representation of what my brain created based on what it thinks serves me at the moment. So here's the kicker, team. I always ask, so how's that going? If you don't like how you're feeling, what's going on, the people you're exposed to, the people you hang out with, what they're doing, what they're saying, if shit isn't working, you can simply change your beliefs that created those feelings. That does not mean that if you have a feeling that you don't like, you have to acquiesce to other people. But what I do in my coaching here at Inner Lab Collective is that I introduce some more out of those 11 million bits. I show you what else could also be true in this very same scenario that you've just experienced and you made up a certain truth about. If I come in and feed you with some other truths and some other things that also happened, a different perspective, then is it possible that you might feel a little bit different? Of course it is. So instead of going from this negative thing that you're in right now, understand that your feelings aren't real, your feelings aren't true, they're just a representation of what your brain has created based on what it believes serves you, me. If it doesn't serve you anymore, change your belief to change your feelings. Your phone is upgrading its operating system constantly. We don't upgrade our operating systems for decades. So I'm still sitting in an old belief of what happened to me, of what my mom did, of what my dad did or didn't do, and who was there and what I didn't have, and I was abandoned, and I'm useless, and I'm not good enough. That belief gets me to step into my life, to ruin things, to prove to myself that I'm not good enough. I prove to myself in my finances, in my relationship, in my career, that I'm not good enough, if that's what I believe. So then, as a coach, I go into my clients and I say, what else is true? I've turned around so many clients based on, I've used exactly the same thing, the events that happen in their life, where they have started to build a belief that they did something wrong, that something is wrong, that they're not good enough, etc., etc. And I take that same scenario, that same event, the same incident, I don't change it, I don't justify it, I'm not saying anything about what happened. I'm just showing you all the other stuff that also happened. And that is the beauty. So it's a little bit of cognitive manipulation, most certainly. And all I'm doing is reintroducing the fact that we've deleted, distorted, and filtered inputs. And all I'm suggesting is that if those deletions, distortions, and filters isn't serving you anymore, let's introduce some other filters, some different filters. Let's see it in a different perspective so that I can now feel better. And usually what we do is that we break ourselves down. We're our own worst enemy. I'm simply here to show you that if you and your brain chose to make certain deletions, distortions, and filters, and those aren't working anymore, let's use another set point to feel much better about ourselves with the exact same thing happening. I hope that makes sense so far. I want to give you a final little bonus example here. Think about your favorite actress or actor. Pick one, you got one, wonderful. I cannot stand that actress or actor. But they're so good, they've done all this work, yeah, rah, rah, rah. I'm just playing a game where I'm just simply saying I don't like them. You saying you love them. How is it possible that we can have two completely separate opinions about the exact same work, the exact same actor, the exact same movies? It's got to do with our perception. It's got to do with our conditioning to what we believe is good, is bad, is hard work, is laziness, whatever it may be. Is it possible that if you tell me your story of that actor, that I might be changing my mind? You could say, yeah, but did you know their story? Did you know what they've been through to get that role? Did you know what they went through to create that persona in that role, etc.? And I might be unaware. I might see that same movie and the same actor with a different view because I now have more information. I have different information. I have other information. If two different people can have the two completely different opinions about the exact same thing, maybe that's possible about your life too. Maybe you have just a negative opinion about your life based on your perspective. And if we introduce a positive, a different, a more well-rounded, additional information about your life that is also true, things that you might have not been aware of because of your deletes, distortions, and filtrations that are absolutely necessary, but still, they might not serve you anymore. What served you back in the day, when you were hurt, when that thing happened to you, you might have needed at the time to become cold, to become resilient, to become... Hello, beautiful girl. I'm making a little video. Yeah, come and check it out. Come and say hi, Samsam.
Hello.
Hey, baby girl. Good morning. Can I continue the video? Where was I? Maybe you needed to be super brainy to get out of trouble. Maybe you needed to acquiesce to someone's behavior to then be able to get out there. You created a persona that was necessary at the time of fight and flight. The brain is then creating a memory that, hey, that behavior worked for us to get out of that place. 20 years later, you might not be in that place anymore. You might be over here, but your brain is still acting like you need to be cold, brainy, not listen to people, to be super assertive, to be angry, etc. Because those behaviors served you back then to get out of trouble. But again, update your cognitive place. Hello, beautiful girl. Come and say hi.
Hi.
Can you come and show your face?
Hi.
Both of my girls have finally woken up. But let's wrap this up. Your brain will create a character, traits, and habits that are necessary for you to get out of the thing at the time. But then upgrade your system constantly. Adapt to what's going on for you currently throughout your life. You don't have to be the way you were because it worked back then. Keep adapting, keep exploring. And what we do at Relied Collective in the Catalyst Clarity Coaching is to show you exactly this. I can show you exactly where that the traits that you're having and you believe is absolutely necessary for you to have for the rest of your life is not true. They were necessary at the time. Your brain said, hey, we got out of trouble, let's keep doing this. If you keep saying no in a scenario where it's absolutely important for you to say no, and if you keep fighting someone off because something aggressive is happening, someone is trying to take control over you, you're going to think that being stubborn, aggressive, and being in control, for example, is absolutely necessary for the rest of your life. And if that is true, wouldn't that be working then? Well, if it was working, you wouldn't be answering how it's going with it's not going very well. If you resonate with this and you are willing to give it a chance, and you can see all of the testimonies of the clients that I helped, so please go ahead, reach out to us so I can show you a different perspective. I can help you feel peace. I can show you where you do not need to be you. You can upgrade to the you version 2.0. Obviously, this video found you at just the right time. Don't ignore it. Don't use your distortions, filtrations, and deletions in the same way that you have. Open up to a new opportunity, that something is available, someone is here to help you, and that person. I'm Conan Maestrom. I'm your coach at Relied Collective. We'll see you soon. Hey, listen up, fuckface. You probably hated that video, and that's your own fucking triggers. But if you did hate that video, make sure you do not check out this video because you'll hate that one too. It's equally triggering. And under absolutely no circumstances, have the audacity to subscribe to the channel.